Imagine working for a company that Fortune magazine named America's most innovative company for 6 consecutive years. A company with over $100 billion in claimed revenue, backed by the most brilliant minds on Wall Street and praised by presidents and politicians alike. And now imagine waking up one morning to find out that it was all an absolute illusion, that the billions of dollars in profits were nothing but numbers written on thin air, and your life savings tied to the company's stock had completely vanished. This isn't just a story about a business going bankrupt. This is the story of Enron. It is a modern-day tragedy of corporate greed, institutional arrogance, and a terrifying psychological phenomenon where the people running the show genuinely believed they were the smartest guys in the room. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the largest and most complex corporate fraud in American history to see how a giant empire vanished into nothingness in just a matter of weeks. To truly understand how a disaster of this magnitude could occur, we have to look closely at the architects who built the foundation. The story begins in 1985 with a powerful man named Kenneth Lay. Through a massive merger of 2 regional natural gas pipeline companies, he formed Enron. In the beginning, it was just a traditional energy company. They owned physical pipes, they moved gas, and they made a modest, predictable profit. But Ken Lay did not want to be just another boring corporate executive running a utility company. He was a highly ambitious man who looked at the sweeping deregulation of the American energy markets and saw a wild, untamed ocean of unlimited wealth waiting to be captured. Lay's grand vision was to completely transform the nature of the industry. He wanted to strip away the heavy, expensive physical assets of the business and turn energy into a financial commodity. He envisioned a world where electricity and natural gas could be bought, sold, and traded on a digital screen, exactly like stocks, options, or foreign currencies. To bring this radical concept to life, he knew he needed a specific kind of mind. In 1990, he found exactly what he was looking for when he hired a brilliant young McKinsey consultant named Jeffrey Skilling. Jeffrey Skilling was a man entirely possessed by numbers and abstract financial theories. He possessed a fierce, aggressive, and almost terrifying intellect, combined with a cold, Darwinian vision for the future of corporate America. Skilling wasn't interested in the actual engineering of pipelines or the blue-collar workers who maintained them. He despised physical assets. He wanted Enron to be an asset-light laboratory for financial engineering. He agreed to leave his prestigious consulting career and join Enron on one strict, non-negotiable condition. The company had to completely abandon traditional accounting and adopt a highly controversial, aggressive method known as mark-to-market accounting. Little did the financial world know, this single decision would become the structural blueprint for the largest corporate illusion in history. Now let's pause our story right here and zoom in closely on this concept, because understanding mark-to-market accounting is absolutely vital if you want to understand how Enron successfully fooled the most sophisticated minds on Wall Street for over a decade. In the traditional honest world of business, accounting is very straightforward. If your company builds a massive power plant for $10 million, and that plant generates $1 million in actual cash profit during its first year, you write down a $1 million profit in your financial ledger. It is tangible, it is verifiable, and it is based on real money changing hands. But under the aggressive mark-to-market rules that Jeffrey Skilling forced Enron to adopt, the reality of physics completely disappeared. Under this system, if Enron signed a complex long-term contract to build a brand new power plant, a plant that was projected to operate for the next 20 or 30 years, Enron was legally allowed to estimate the total future profits of that project. If their internal math model suggested the plant might make $50 million over the next 2 decades, Enron was permitted to log that entire $50 million as pure, immediate profit on the very day the contract was signed. Think about the psychological insanity of this system for a moment. The ground hadn't even been broken to build the plant. Not a single kilowatt of electricity had been generated. No customer had paid a single dime. Yet on Enron's official financial balance sheets, they looked like an absolute money-printing machine to the public and to investors. They were essentially predicting a glorious future, writing down their own wishes as hard facts and laughing all the way to the bank. But what happened when the future inevitably arrived, and the project turned out to be a total disaster? Or what happened when a deal collapsed after only 6 months and made $0 instead of $50 million? In a normal system, you would admit the mistake and write down a massive loss. But at Enron, admitting a loss meant the stock price would drop. And dropping stock prices meant the executives would lose their multi-million-dollar bonuses. So instead of changing the numbers to reflect reality, they chose a darker path. They created an intricate web of fake, hidden shell companies to secretly absorb the losses, keeping the public balance sheet perfectly clean. This accounting method became Enron's ultimate license to lie. It created a toxic, distorted corporate culture where actual cash flow didn't matter anymore. The only god they worshipped was the stock ticker, and they would do whatever it took to keep that number climbing higher and higher. When you give a company a license to lie to the outside world, something deeply disturbing happens to its culture on the inside. Jeffrey Skilling didn't just want to revolutionize the energy market. He wanted to reinvent human psychology within the corporate structure. To achieve this, he introduced an internal performance review system that former employees later described as a modern-day psychological gladiator arena. It was officially called the Performance Review Committee, but inside the walls of Enron, it was universally known by a much more brutal name, Rank and Yank. Every single year, all employees were graded on a strict scale from 1 to 5. The rules of Skilling's game were completely uncompromising. The top 5% of performers were rewarded with astronomical multi-million-dollar bonuses and treated like corporate royalty. But the bottom 15%? They were automatically and publicly targeted. No matter how hard they worked, no matter if they had achieved their personal goals, if they fell into that bottom of 15% compared to their colleagues, they were ruthlessly fired, escorted out of the building by security, and replaced within days. This created a corporate culture driven entirely by pure, unadulterated terror and extreme paranoia. It was a textbook survival of the fittest environment where loyalty, teamwork, and basic human ethics were completely incinerated. Employees quickly realized that the only way to protect their own jobs was to backstab their colleagues, sabotage other departments, and inflate the profits of their own deals by any means necessary. If a contract was a complete disaster in reality, a trader would still log it as a massive success on paper, just to survive the next review cycle. The executives didn't care about the backstabbing. In fact, they encouraged it. They believed that by keeping their workforce in a perpetual state of fear, they were forging a hyper-aggressive elite force of capitalism. But in reality, they were building a ticking psychological time bomb. They had created an empire staffed by people who were terrified of admitting a mistake, terrified of the truth, and willing to commit outright frauds just to survive another day in the office. By the year 2000, Enron's insatiable greed had outgrown the boundaries of Wall Street. The numbers they were faking on their balance sheets were no longer enough to hide the staggering losses of their failed investments. They desperately needed massive, real, immediate cash flows to keep the stock price from crashing, and they found their perfect victim in the state of California. California had recently deregulated its electricity market, mistakenly believing that free market competition would lower prices for its citizens. Jeffrey Skilling and his hyper-aggressive energy traders saw this as a golden opportunity to conduct a predatory financial experiment. Enron quickly seized control of a massive portion of the state's power grid, but instead of providing electricity, Enron's traders realized they could make vastly more money by deliberately creating artificial scarcity. Enron began executing highly complex criminal schemes with code names like Fat Boy, Death Star, and Get Shorty. The strategy was as simple as it was evil. On burning hot summer days when families across California were turning on their air conditioning, Enron would call up independent power plants in the state and order them to shut down for scheduled maintenance. They were intentionally cutting off the power supply to an entire state. As a direct result, rolling blackouts paralyzed California. Traffic lights went dark, businesses were forced to close, and elderly people were trapped in sweltering homes without cooling or electricity. Because the supply of energy vanished while the demand was at an all-time high, the wholesale price of electricity didn't just rise, it exploded by over 800% in a matter of hours. While millions of ordinary citizens were suffering in the dark, inside the air-conditioned luxury of Enron's trading floor in Houston, the traders were celebrating. Audio tapes that were later uncovered by federal investigators revealed Enron traders laughing hysterically about the blackouts, openly mocking the suffering citizens and screaming, "Burn, baby, burn! Just keep rubbing your hands together." In one shocking recording, a trader is heard telling a power plant operator to shut down a plant, explicitly stating that they wanted the price of electricity to go to the moon. Through this manufactured darkness, Enron extorted billions of dollars directly from the taxpayers of California, cementing their place not as innovative businessmen, but as financial terrorists. By early 2001, the multi-billion-dollar Illusion was running out of oxygen. No matter how many fake shell companies they created, and no matter how much money they extorted from California, the mathematical reality of Enron's massive debt could no longer be contained. The house of cards was suffocating under its own weight. The first major crack in the glass appeared in August 2001 when Jeffrey Skilling, the very man who built this aggressive system, suddenly resigned as CEO after only 6 months in the position. He claimed it was for personal reasons, but Wall Street smelled blood in the water. Skilling knew the avalanche was coming, and he wanted to escape before the snow buried him alive. Shortly after his departure, a brave internal whistleblower named Sharon Watkins wrote an anonymous, desperate letter to Ken Lay, warning him that the company was about to implode in a wave of accounting scandals. But it was too late to stop the bleeding. In October 2001, Enron was forced to officially report a staggering $618 million loss for the third quarter. And to make matters worse, federal regulators opened a massive investigation into the company's secret partnerships. The reaction on Wall Street was immediate and violent. Panic spread like wildfire. Investors who had trusted the company with their life savings began dumping their shares in a frenzy. Enron's stock price, which had peaked at over $90 per share, collapsed vertically, falling to less than $1. As the ship went down, the behavior of the executives turned utterly sociopathic. While ordinary employees were legally locked out of their retirement accounts and could only watch helplessly as their life savings vanished into nothingness, top executives like Ken Lay and Jeffrey Skilling were frantically selling their own personal stocks, walking away with tens of millions of dollars in cold cash. On December 2nd, 2001, Enron officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. At the time, it was the largest corporate bankruptcy in the history of the world. Over 20,000 employees lost their jobs in a single day. Their health care evaporated, and over $2 billion in worker pensions were completely erased from existence. The human cost of this corporate psychopathy was devastating. J. Clifford Baxter, a former vice chairman of Enron who had internally complained about the company's fraudulent practices, was found dead in his car from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, unable to bear the shame and pressure of the impending collapse. The final act of this tragedy played out in a federal courtroom, where the grand illusionist finally had to face reality. In 2006, Kenneth Lay and Jeffrey Skilling stood trial. The defense tried to argue that they were simply visionaries who made bad business decisions, but the mountain of forged documents, destroyed emails, and secret recordings proved a deliberate criminal conspiracy to defraud the American public. Kenneth Lay was convicted on multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy, but he died of a massive heart attack just months before his sentencing, escaping prison time by entering a grave. Jeffrey Skilling was sentenced to 24 years in federal prison for his crimes, though his sentence was later reduced, and he was released after serving 12 years. Enron's independent accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, one of the largest and most respected auditing firms on the planet, was found guilty of obstructing justice for systematically shredding tons of Enron documents. The conviction effectively destroyed the firm, putting another 85,000 people out of work globally. Enron remains the ultimate, terrifying monument to unbridled corporate greed. It proved to the world that when you combine a toxic internal culture driven by fear with an accounting system that allows you to turn lies into legal profits, even the largest empire can vanish into thin air. It stands as an eternal warning that the people who claim to be the smartest guys in the room are often just the ones building the most dangerous illusions. What do you think? Was Enron's collapse an inevitable result of capitalism's dark side, or just the work of a few corrupt minds? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to the Monopoly Archive for our next investigation into history's greatest financial downfalls. Thanks for watching.